The purpose of this video is to give you the knowledge and skills that you'll need to use the pyramid and volume to solve some problems. So first things first, the volume of a pyramid is going to be 1/3 the product of the area of the base and the height. Notice that this is different than finding the volume of a cylinder or the volume of a prism. So our formula here is going to be a little bit different, and I'll talk more about how and why that comes to be the next time that you come to class. But let's jump right in and take a look at some examples. Number 1 says to find the volume of a square pyramid with a base length of 75 inches and an altitude of 100 inches. Round your answer to the nearest tenth of a cubic foot. All right, so if I think about what this guy looks like, I'm always going to start out by drawing the base. So this pyramid is a square pyramid, meaning that its base is in the shape of a square. So I'm going to go ahead and draw that square a little bit off center. I'm going to use or find the vertex of my pyramid next, and then I'm going to connect that vertex to the 4 vertices that make up the corners of my pyramid. And it's not the most elegant pyramid out there, but it'll give me what I need to get the job done. So the base length is 75 inches. Because this pyramid is a regular pyramid, I know that its base is a regular polygon, and thus all of its sides have the same length. Its altitude is 100 inches. So altitude, remember, is the distance or the perpendicular distance from the vertex down to the base. So that guy has a measure of 100. Since it's asking us to find the volume, I'm going to use the formula for the volume of a pyramid. So formula says volume is equal to 1/3 times the area of the base times the height of our pyramid. At this point, we don't know the area of our base, but we can certainly find it. We know that our base is a square whose side length is 75. So formula for finding the area of a square is either side squared or length times width. I'm going to multiply 75 times itself. So the area of our base is 5,625 square inches. So now that I know that the area of the base is 5,625 square units, I can come substitute that into my formula. I know that the height of my prism is 100 square units. Since it tells me to round, I'm going to go ahead and plug that whole number into my graphing calculator. So I'm going to multiply 1/3 times 5,625 times 100. When I plug that all into my calculator, I end up with 187,500 cubic feet. Now that said, it tells me in the problem to round to the nearest tenth. That's a little bit silly because our answer is a whole number, but because it says round to the nearest tenth, I'm going to follow directions and round to the nearest tenth. And this, of course, this dimension is measured in cubic feet. So I'm either going to make it cubic feet or feet to the 3rd power. All right, so there's number 1. If at this point you have a question about this problem or there's something about it that doesn't feel good or make sense, would you please put a little star next to it in your notes so that you'll remember to ask about it the next time you come to class. That said, I'm going to move on and tackle the next one. Number 2 is a rectangular pyramid with a base measuring 17 meters by 19 meters. Our pyramid has a height of 17 meters, and they want us to find the volume of our pyramid. So I'm going to go ahead again, and I'm going to start with the base. The base is a rectangle. So again, I'm going to draw this a little off center, but there's my rectangle. I'm going to go ahead and draw my vertex, and then I'm going to connect that vertex to each of the points or each of the vertices on the base of my pyramid. That rectangular base measures 17 meters by 19 meters. So I'm going to go ahead and label that in my picture. And then the height of this pyramid, so again, the distance or the perpendicular distance from the vertex down to the base is 17 meters. And again, they want us to find the volume. So the formula for finding the volume of a pyramid is that volume equals 1/3 times the area of the base times the height. I don't know the area of the base, but I do know that my base is a rectangle that's 17 by 19. So to find the area of that base, I'm just going to multiply the 17 and the 19 together. And when I get out my calculator and do that, we find that the area of the base is 323 square meters. So I'm now going to take that number and go substitute it into the formula for the area of the base times the height of my pyramid. I'm actually going to dig out the calculator at this point and show you how to do this computation, because this gets to be a little bit tricky. So I'm going to dig out my calculator. At the same time, I want you to dig out your calculator so that you know exactly how your calculator will perform. So to enter a fraction on the TI Nspire, I'm going to go hit the little button next to the book on the right-hand side of the calculator. That'll bring up a nifty little menu where I can enter things like roots, fractions, absolute values. But the one that I'm interested in this case is the fraction. So I want to multiply the fraction 1/3 times 323 times 17. And then I'm going to hit the enter button. So I end up with 5,491 over 3. And this is going to feel a little bit uncomfortable to some people because they don't like fractions, but that is our answer. That is our volume for this rectangular pyramid. So 5,491 divided by 3 cubic meters. Now in this case, unlike the first problem, they didn't ask us to round. But let's just suppose for a minute that they had asked us to round. If they had asked us to round, then the way that we had put this into the calculator would be a little bit different. And just in case they ask you to round, I want to go through that process with you. I'm still going to enter in the fraction 1/3, just like I did up above. I'm still going to multiply times the 323. I'm still going to multiply by the 17, but this time, before I hit enter, I'm going to hit the control button on my calculator. And this time, by hitting control first, it tells me then that I want my answer in decimal form. So now I can go ahead and round that to the nearest tenth or the nearest hundredth, or maybe they might have wanted it to the nearest whole cubic meter, but I can round it in whatever way is required for or requested in the problem. So that's just a little bit of calculator information for you. All right. Again, if you have questions or concerns about this one, or maybe you're using the TI-83 or 84 and it behaves a little bit differently with fractions than the Nspire does, and you want to ask me a question about it, just put a little star next to that so that you'll remember to ask the next time that you come to class. All right, the last example on this page has to do with another square pyramid. So again, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start by drawing that picture of my square base. There's my vertex. And I'm just going to connect the vertex of my pyramid to each vertex in the square that makes up my base. The base length here is 8. And I don't know the height. What I do know in this question is I know the volume of this pyramid. Since this question is talking about volume, the first thing I'm going to do, just like I've done for all the others, is go ahead and jot down that volume formula. I know that the volume is 360, so into my formula, in place of the volume, I'm going to substitute the 360. I don't know the area of my base, but I can find it. It's a square pyramid, and to find the area of its base, I'm either simply going to square the 8, or I'm going to multiply the 8 times 8. We're trying to find the height of the pyramid. That, remember, is the perpendicular distance between the base and the vertex. I'm going to be not real original and call that h. And again, this calls for me to get out my calculator and to plug some things in. So I'm going to start by multiplying the 1/3 times the 64. I'm going to get out my calculator. You should get out yours too so that you'll know how your calculator behaves and how it acts. So 1/3 multiplied by the 64. And this is going to be a little bit uncomfortable because, again, we have to do some work involving fractions. So those two numbers multiplied together end up being 64 thirds times the height. Now at this point, in order to undo that multiplication by the 64 thirds, you can either divide both sides by 64 thirds, or you can multiply both sides by its reciprocal, which is 3 over 64. Whichever way you want to go and you feel most comfortable with is the best way to go. I'm going to multiply both sides by the reciprocal. My reason for doing that is that now these 3's in the numerator and denominator of the right-hand side will cancel out. The 64's in the numerator and the denominator will cancel out. And what I'll be left with is just plain old h, or the height of my pyramid. And that's what I wanted to. So now I'm going to multiply the left side by 3 over 64. And again, I'm going to go get my calculator out. You're going to get your calculator out, do these computations in your calculator so that you know how your calculator will behave. So 135 over 8. Now the problem with that is my answer is they are asking me to round or to find my answer to the nearest hundredth. So I should have, before I hit enter on that calculator, hit control. A simple little way that I can fix that is I'm going to hit control answer, which will bring up my answer from the previous line of 138 over 5. Hit control enter. And now it has given me my answer in decimal form, which I can now round to the nearest hundredth. So 16.88. So the height of our pyramid here, 16.88 feet. Excellent. At this point, if you have a question about number 3, again, circle it, star it, leave yourself a note so that you can remember to ask me about it when you come back to class. Number 4, purely for your pleasure or your enjoyment. This one is review. It has to do with lateral area and surface area. So take a few minutes, invest yourself in this question, see if you can find lateral area, surface area, and volume. And when you come back to class the next time, we'll double check to make sure that you understand what you're doing. And if you do, great. If you don't, we'll take some steps and go through this problem to get you back on track.